we have Dr. Francisco Valle, who's going to be presenting a very important topic right now, with this pandemic. I always have a hard time, or not a hard time, but I usually don't like to present our guests because I never do a good job at it. So I'm going to let Francisco to give us like a quick background. Francisco, I mean, we can talk about your background for hours because you have a very impressive career. You are one of the Latinos that I respect the most, not just in San Diego, but across the country for everything that you have accomplished in your career. So I want to tell you that we're very grateful to have you today, sharing all your knowledge with our audience. So if it is okay with you, can you please give us, like a 2-minute background presentation, and then we can start the topic that you're going to be presenting this evening.
Sure. First of all, I'd like to thank you, Taide, for inviting me here. And also I'd like to thank all the people in the audience. They're following us because I know the time is very valuable and you have to decide what to do now, especially with so many webinars going on. But one thing that I want to emphasize, what I'm going to do today is all practical, but I'm going to include some basic fundamentals. Okay, so hopefully what I'm going to share with you today, you're going to be able to use it tomorrow or even tonight. For the past 18 years, I have had my own consulting company. It's called Valle Consulting. We do strategy and marketing consulting, including integrated marketing communication plans. We have worked for small companies, family-owned, all the way to very large corporations. At the same time, I have worked with educational institutions, government agencies, etc. Prior to that, I worked for Fortune 50 companies, and where I held several different positions, from the bottom all the way to be in the moral advisors of companies, And my education background pretty much is PhD in management and MBA, as well as a BS in chemistry, pharmacy, and biology. I was born in Mexico, fully bilingual, English and Spanish, can conduct presentations in both languages simultaneously. And that's nutshell my background.
That's amazing, Francisco. Well, thank you very much for sharing. So if you are ready, let's share your screen and we'll start with the presentation.
Sure. Can you see it now?
Yeah, we can see it.
Okay.
You just need to switch to presentation mode.
Oh, I'm there.
Oh, probably okay. Probably it's let's see.
Let me stop again. Let me stop sharing. Okay.
Okay.
Let me start again.
Mm-hmm.
Can you see it now?
We can see your screen. There you go.
Okay. So the topic today is what to do to keep your business alive during these difficult times. We are all facing this type of difficulties. The majority of the businesses are obviously in a very decreased sales mode or sales growth, while some others have benefited incredible from this pandemic that's happening. For instance, Zoom is an example. other companies that we're going to talk about throughout the presentation. But the bottom line is, I'm going to talk about practical stuff that I'm sure that many of you have already started doing some of the things I'm going to recommend today, but maybe I can add some other ideas, and if you have not started really looking in depth in your company and outside of the company, maybe this can serve you as a guideline. Now, so what we're going to do is to discuss difficult decisions, how to face nowadays, because business today is not like the good old-fashioned way. No, I'm going to present practical suggestions, and the other thing that I'm going to do today, I'm going to share with you a roadmap that I developed as part of my dissertation, PhD dissertation, to increase the probability of success of your initiatives, and then to ask questions, to answer questions that you may have. In the first part, the foundation of any organization is the company. But then it's very important each company has either a board of directors or a board of advisors. If I were to ask how many of your companies have board of directors or board of advisors, if it's a mid-sized company or a large company, yes, most of you have it, and if it's a public company, or has to have it, or if it's a partnership, you still have to have some of these things. On the other hand, many small companies don't have it. And these difficult times, it's very important that even small companies consider having or putting together a board of directors or board of advisors. And most of people are willing to help you as long as you are willing to take their advice. The other thing why this is very important is because these people can serve you as a bridge between some other opportunities that you may not have already in place. The other thing that is important is the management. You have in place right now management people that have the expertise to deal with this type of situation. If you don't, then you need to think about it. Because I can tell you, especially small and mid-sized companies, it's very hard to make some of the most difficult decisions when you have a situation like this. Most of the small companies, and again some mid-sized companies, they are very loyal to the people that help them start the company and grow the company. And I appreciate that, and it's very, very, very good. But when you are in a survival mode, you need to make sure that you have the right people with the right expertise and experience to be able to do this. And the other more important thing is the wisdom to figure out how to get you out of trouble. So the first question is, can you, for instance, replace or not replace, just change, for a highly experienced person, or vice president of operations, or manager of operations, or whatever you want to call it, an old person that has been with you from the beginning for 10 years, but who cannot understand technology. And as you will see later today, understanding technology is key for the success of your company nowadays. Therefore, so it's very, very hard. And I have seen this by having advice small to very large corporations. And the small companies is an individual, right? That is operating the lines, or what I'm saying operating the lines is running the lines. You're not sure that everything is done according to plan. When it's in the higher levels, they have a lot of people. They have been very loyal to the CEO, and they keep them there. But those people are costing millions of dollars a year. So it's another difficult decision for the CEOs of large corporations. How can I let this person go with dignity and respect? And that's the key word. You have to treat everybody with kindness, dignity, and respect. The other thing is, do you or somebody, your board of directors or board advisors or consultant that you hire, have the cultural expertise to understand your company and what you need to have to survive in this model under current circumstances? And in all the studies they've done and all the companies they're consulting throughout the years, by the way, I started consulting professionally since 1986. At the same time, I was working with several companies. And so the question is, are these people really qualified to let me know what type of culture I have in my organization? And when I'm talking about culture, I'm not talking about being Hispanic or African American, Asian, etc. I'm talking about, are we innovative? Are we risk takers? Are we people that are willing to accept advice from outside? And I'm saying this at the top level as well as the lower levels. The other thing that I'm sure you already are doing is look at the cost and financial leverage. I have seen many places where people are cutting, for instance, coffee service, or they're cutting, the car wash for the employee the month, etc. But how much is that as a percentage of the total cost of the company? Have you looked into the real cost there? How many, if you're a small company, how many relatives do you have in the payroll? Can you still keep them in your payroll? How many people you have, you need to have because you are using all technology to produce goods versus a more automated technology. And obviously, you need to go line by line. But don't spend too much time in the minutia. Spend most of your time on the items that are the most significant lines. Obviously, it depends on what industry you are. For instance, if you are in a restaurant service industry or service industry, labor is very important and food cost. On the other hand, if you are in a capital-intensive industry, projects are very important. For instance, I used to manage $400 million with 45 people. So for me, the assets, were very important. But more important, obviously, is to have the right people in the right places. So I always pay above industry average, so I could really cherry pick the best employees I could have. The other thing that's important for you to know is the strategy that you have implemented that had worked for you for years is no longer going to work, because now everything has changed. Not from the principles of selling or marketing or producing necessarily, but the way people acquire the information as well as the way that you serve people. And again, I'm going to speak about this in more detail in a second. But the important part here is understanding that you need to really think about what is the strategy that you're going to follow. After you have a good solid strategy and you have all these steps in line, then you can talk about a marketing plan. A marketing plan is just how you're going to achieve the strategy that you have set up in place. That is internally. Externally, again, the company needs to have great relationship with the community and with city and county officials. One question that I ask to my clients is, when I start working with them, is how many cellular phone numbers do you have of people that you know in the community that will answer when you call them right away? They not only are in the community, but they are the real leaders of the community. How many city officials, including all the way to the mayor, or the board of directors or supervisors in the county, did you know? Especially now that many cities and counties are providing government subsidies to companies. So another thing here is really develop solid relationships with the community and with the county officials. Because if the community supports you, that is going to play a key role in the next one. You need to have solid banking relationships. If I were to ask you, how many of you have a solid banking relationship? Everybody says, hey, I've been banking with the same company for 10 years. Yeah, you've been depositing checks, you're doing the payroll, or you do it through some other company, like ADP, for instance, but they just transfer the money from the bank, etc. Well, there's many people that can do that. But how many banks relationships do you have where you can actually talk to the banker and say, I need you to increase my line of credit by $500,000 or $400,000? And that is sometimes a very, very important part. I can share with you a story that happened to us when I had an advertising agency. We always wanted to have the big order. One time we got a $500,000 order on Tuesday and a $500,000 order contract on a Thursday. But we knew that the client was not going to pay us for 3 months. On the other hand, we cannot say no, but how we're going to do that? I had to spend a lot of time and effort going to bankers they knew. Most of them turned me down. But there was one that believed in me and in my team. And they said, okay, if you guys are willing to use some of your equity in your house as collateral, or some of your investments as collateral, we will give you the money. And they gave us a $500,000 credit line in 2 days. Because, payroll was not going to wait. But if I had not had this person helping me, I don't know what we would have done. The other thing that is critical right now is the leverage of technology and know-how. And by the way, Tide did not pay me to say this, okay? I want to emphasize that. This is critical nowadays because now when you open a company and you have a website, you're global, sometimes the same day, but sometimes the next day. Why is that? Because companies like Alibaba, Amazon, Google, etc., send spiders through the world, and they collect information, especially new information, about companies that are offering services. So you have to be able to deal with people on a global basis from day one. And if you want to do it just with people, you're not going to be able to do it. The other thing why this is important is you need to be able to leverage, technology such as big data, artificial intelligence, and machine learning, deep learning, etc. Now, I want to emphasize those tools they are really, talk about all the time are just tools. The important part is how you use the information that those tools provide to you. Because machine learning and deep learning and all those things, they learn by how many cases you have. And what are the rules that they put in or the programmer wrote into the program to make the decision. On the other hand, this new technology lacks something that's critical to have to make sure that a company survives, which is intuition or common sense, or the feeling, the gut feeling. For instance, if a machine is programmed to avoid collisions or to save the driver in case of an accident, and you see a child coming to you, that the machine knows what to do? No, because the machine is programmed only to figure out what to do regarding saving the driver. So if there is no way for the car, let's say, to move to the left, what is the machine going to do with a self-driven vehicle? Run over the kid? So this is what I want to emphasize. You need to use all this technology, but you have to use your common sense. And that's why I call this presentation, building on success. Because all of you have been extremely successful. But now we're talking about leveraging all the new technologies and tools to take your business to the next level. And one thing that many companies don't have is the right level of risk insurance. And that is another thing that is very important to have. Because like in these cases, a different type of risk insurance, but it's worth to pay the price. Because there are disruptions, and I guarantee you, no matter how good you are in strategic planning or marketing execution, there is going to be disruptions at least once every 3 years, significant disruptions. So it's very important to assure that if something drastic happens, you are protected. So the bottom line is, I'm asked all the time, so what is the one thing that people really need to have to succeed in these difficult times? It's not one thing. You need to have to balance the internal needs that you need to fulfill with the external environment. So to do this, you need to be honest internally and externally. Why do I say to do this? Because many times we tend to hide things from the bankers or from our employees. That isn't a good thing. Be obviously as open and frank as you can, but don't lie. Don't try to put a nice, cover on issues. Now, other thing is, when we're facing a situation like this, it's called a significant emotional event. We need to create a sense of urgency and a need to change and innovate. And here is another thing that's very difficult, because many times people are very comfortable coming to the office 8 to 5, having a lunch, the breaks, etc. But sometimes some of these things don't allow you to continue doing the same thing. You have to shuffle around, the different activities, reorganizing the departments, etc. And then the other thing that is super important is not only to provide unique incremental value for current and prospective customers, but you have to provide additional value. And what I mean here is, for instance, if you are already, in the airline industry, what was the difference between Southwest Airlines they and the rest of the other airlines? Southwest was really clearly established to handle certain type of customers. So you need to identify what are your segments that you really want to go after. Secondly, how you can add value to them. In this case is adding the promise that you're going to arrive on time. And on Southwest Airlines, many times, I request that they put me on the Southwest Airline, because in all the years I've been traveling, only 2 times I have had issues with the flight. One, landing in Oakland, California. The plane had a tire issue, but within an hour, they rescheduled us. On the other hand, in Chicago one time with the snow. But other airlines, they are more expensive than them. They have more nice goodies, create many problems for me because I always go from one place to another. So the question here is, okay, how to provide unique incremental and additional value for current and prospective customers, but not from your perspective, but from their perspective. So how do you do this? You have to develop surveys. They are custom tailored for the segment or the different segments that you do. And then don't try to make your products fit that particular customer. Try to adapt your products to satisfy the needs of those current or prospective customers. But you have to keep a balance of this. Now, are you a strategic or tactical person? You know, if I ask people, many people say, I'm a strategic. Others people tell me, I'm tactical, but the majority said, oh, I'm very strategic. My team is very strategic. And things. So let me see. Okay. Think about when you are asking questions in a meeting or in writing. Are you asking questions that start with the word what or with the word how? Because if you're asking questions that start with the word how, you are really a tactical person. And if you ask questions that start with the word what, you're a strategic person. Let me give you an example. Something that many of your companies right now are facing is, for instance, if you're from a tactical executive, how much raise should we give to the employees this year for next year, yeah? Or how much increase on payroll should we have for next year? Assuming that you have a fiscal year that starts in January. But that is the tactical question. What we should do is ask first, what can we afford as a company right now to provide to employees as a raise for next year? And that question will have two answers. We cannot do it, or yes, we can do it. If we cannot do it, that's the end of the conversation. If we can do it, then the difficult question here is how much we have to do. How much is the percentage increase on the payroll that we can afford? After we determine that, whether it's 1%, 2%, 4%, etc., then you pass it to the tactical people, and normally end up in HR, and they decide how they're going to split it. So, but the question first is what, should we do now? Can we afford to give raises or not? And then how we're going to execute the plan that was set up for us. Now, I will tell you one thing though. Most people are strategic or tacticals. The strategic people are the innovators. They are looking for new products and modifications to current products. For instance, Elon Musk, he went and invented, obviously, the electric vehicles. There is one article today, and they came out that now there is a car that can run in water. It doesn't consume even electricity, just water. And it can run 300 miles or so. Now, these people are also industry transformers. Imagine if I had told you that I was going to have a taxi company, but I was not going to have taxis. What is the name of the company? Uber. Yeah. And then you have disruptors. See? Here, you have people, they help you change the things are, how things operate. And for instance, you are old enough, like I am, Microsoft has been a disruptor from the beginning. At the beginnings of the times in the 80s, we used to have PowerPoint. Instead of PowerPoint, you used to have hardware graphics. We used to have DisplayWrite as the word processor. And we used to have something called like Excel. But then they came Microsoft, and they put it all together nicely, and now they all, interfaces seamlessly. The tactical executives now are organic growth, just figuring out how you can increase your market share in a given market or segment, or how you can expand it. On the other hand, right now, there is a huge opportunity to do mergers and acquisitions. If you have a company, regardless of size, will you better off trying to do the whole thing by yourself? Or will you better off, working with other people that that you can join together to either big companies or two small companies and make one bigger one? For instance, I have a client that was asking, how can we go to the next level? One suggestion is the supplier that he had was a little bit bigger, but my client had more potential to sell. So what about combining the two companies? They were not big, they were small companies. So why don't you combine or try to figure out how to combine the two companies into one, and do that and increase the value of two companies. So right now, the best thing you can do is work on both sides of the fence, just like Steve Jobs used to do it. Now, my recommendation to you is, as a manager of, CEO, C-level executive of a company, you need to be able to do both. Because if somebody is proposing to you things that cannot be implemented, then forget it. On the other hand, if they are providing you with tactical implementation ideas, but they are not going to really provide a significant amount of growth in your company, maybe you can consider it as a line extension or new products, etc. But you're not going to really benefit largely from that. So the bottom line is that you need to look at, what is your sustainable competitive advantage based on the supply chain that you have for customers. And there are different things, from a specialization, brand, to cost leadership, etc. Now, many people are familiar with the SWOT analysis. And I'm not going to talk about that right now. But the SWOT analysis is something that lacks, in my opinion, a lot of opportunities to really see how you can increase the value from a customer perspective, or your services or your products. For instance, see, when the iPhone came out, it was not the most advanced telephone or smartphone in the market, but that phone made all the connections seamless between different devices that you have. And it was so seamless, they actually became, a symbol of status. So everybody wanted to have iPhones. And again, from a technology perspective, probably the Galaxy or some other phones had more value from a pure technology perspective. But from a customer perspective, is not the case. So what you have to do is trying to determine what customers really value the most from the pre-sale to the post-sale. And especially nowadays, you need to have a great website where people are going to be collecting the information about your company or your services. From there, you need to have a good team of salespeople that they are going to sell to the other company. Unless you can do totally electronic, it's going B2C or B2B, etc. It's going to be very difficult not to have salespeople when you have major sales. So the websites are good, excellent tools, and they're good for electronic sales. But the best thing is to have a person first taking care of those customers. Now, so when you look at the supply chains, you need to look at, okay, how did they order, how we deliver, how we produce, all the way to how we confirm that everything is fine with them. And I can tell you, most companies do not do a good post-sale job. They don't follow up with you. Or if they do, they just do electronic things nobody really appreciates right now, because we're getting so many emails and links to share what our experience was, etc. Do it with people. And so here what you have to do is what links in the supply chain can stay as they are, what can we modify, what can we add to new, what can we change to add value to new customers. The bottom line is how we can make this company more valuable from a customer perspective, and how can we respond faster to the customers. Now, from a sales perspective, one thing that you need to also, or I would suggest you look into it, is don't talk about your company too much. People do not buy products. Again, people do not buy products. What people buy is a virtual benefit that the product brings to them that solves a problem that they have. So what this means is, or an idea that they have. So here, there's only 5 things that you can sell. So try to identify what your company really can offer to clients. One of these 5 things will make you grow your business. What are the benefits and promises, like the Red Cross, for instance? We don't ask whether, if there is a big situation, like right now in Orlando, for instance, whether the Red Cross is the best way to do it. What we ask is, where can we send money to help those people, or what kind of help we can provide? Then there are norms and values, like ExxonMobil. The company goes by the books and makes sure that all its employees know that if they violate, the company policies and guidelines, they are going to suffer potentially, consequences. So they are always looking for people that knows how to follow guidelines and policies. And now, perception sometimes. Federal Express was the first one to have a system that was able to produce you ideas where your package was and when it was going to be entered. But nowadays, you have the United States Postal Service, you have UPS, etc. They can deliver the next day. And they're very competitive in price. But if you have something really important to do, we tend to Federal Express it. Why? Because that's the gold standard. So are you the gold standard in your industry? If not, is there one? If there's none, then how you can become one? And that way the perception is that you're the standard. The other thing that you can do is try to identify whether the people identify, and use your brand as self-expression. Here's, I use Nordstrom because people know that Nordstrom, you can get the same clothes probably, or very similar, from other organizations. But do you have any issues with the company? or with their products, they will solve it right on the spot. The people on the floor don't have to go and ask a supervisor or anyone. They fix it. This is in the high end. In the low end, I may buy coffee from Starbucks, but on the other hand, I may just go and buy the big gulp, or whatever the name is, from 7-Eleven or any of the gas stations for 99 cents. People identify in either side. And the other one is emotional love. So all you have to do is look for just one of these things. Now, there's only a few companies that can do more than one. One of them is Southwest Airlines. Southwest Airlines, delivers not only emotions at low because they bring people together at low prices, but they are really reliable and make it happen. So the other thing that is important now is that nobody can survive on their own. Now we are moving to a new growth model, is the market-oriented ecosystem. All the companies, regardless of size, need to operate on this. So the key here is, do you have all the type of organizations or individuals to support your growth? If not, how you can become part of their groups so they can help you. For instance, have you talked to your suppliers? Have your suppliers, have you asked them, hey, can you extend my credit terms from 60 days or 30 days to 90 days? If you have been good in the past, they should be able to grant it, if not permanently, temporarily, an extension. On the other hand, the same thing with the bankers. So it's important that you establish this ecosystem of people that are going to support you financially, operationally, as well as from a supply perspective and logistics and distribution. And the other thing we need to have is how to transform the existing organization. So bottom line is what I just talked about is 6 steps. I have 5 here, and I'm going to tell you the other one. One is develop a business rationale for your strategic and marketing initiative. Why do you want to do this? What is the reason for this? And how you're going to do it? Is this a strategic and marketing initiative going to produce the result that you have? If numerically you can say yes, then you proceed to the next step. Is my organization ready to do this? If not, what do I need to change in the company? Or what do I need to bring into the company to make it happen? Then, then you have to perform a competitor analysis. I need to identify the potential elements for the strategic plan. And here it's very important to know that you not only need to look at who are the current competitors, but who are the current complements, and who are, the companies that can come and are not visible yet, but you have heard about them. They're going to come and compete with you. So who are the future substitutes for the organization? And then you put it together from a strategic perspective, and then you implement the plan. So the other thing that I want to emphasize here is what I call the step 6, is you need to make sure that you have good benchmarks and that you follow through and make people accountable for achieving those. Because if not, nobody's going to survive. Okay? Bottom line is stick to your sustainable competitive advantage. And as I say, adopt a disruptor's attitude. So meaning, think about outside of the box. Okay. And for this, you have to decentralize the decision-making process, implement a cultural change through the organization, think about producing short-term results so you can be alive, but at the same time, start thinking about how you can change the company in the long plan. I had a client, for instance, they their competitive advantage was that they could deliver Windows within 5 days or 6 days. But then we said, what if you were to do 3D printing of Windows in a few hours? And that thing already exists. It's in Germany, for instance. So not only they will create a lot of value from a customer perspective, because instead of saying, okay, I will deliver the window within a week, now they can deliver the window within a few hours. And they say, oh, please go and have a cup of coffee, and we will have the window ready for you, because this client makes only custom windows and doors. So there is an example where you can create, a cultural change and create a culture of innovation in the company. At the same time, this change will decrease the number of people required to produce the windows. Instead of having 22 people or so in the line, now they only need 2 or 3 people. So it's very, very important. But again, stick to what you know and use the technology so you can become a professional organization. An exponential organization is the one that normally produce 10 times more profits and grow 10 times faster the people or companies that do not leverage technology. The bottom line is to assure the survival of the company, you need to have, a exponential organization type of mentality where technology is going to serve you as a tool. They are not going to make the decision for you because they don't have intuition like you do. They don't have wisdom like you do. They only act based on algorithms. You need to have a board of directors that can help you, or board advisors. Some are paying, some are not paying. You have to have the right management in place. And you need to transfer the behavior of the employees as well as increase the technology. Okay, if anybody would like to speak with me, this is how you can reach me. The easiest way is just Dr. Francisco Valle, valleconsulting.com. You will find there. Again, thank you. And where do we go from here? Any questions or anything? Thank you. I hope that you find it useful. Oh, yeah.
Again, now give me a sec. Right here. There you go. Well, thank you again, Dr. Valle. So we have been receiving some questions throughout your presentation. I didn't want to ask them when you were presenting, so we didn't interrupt your message, which was great. So let me start with the first one, because this topic is a little sensitive, especially for small businesses.
Yes.
When it comes about salaries, because you talk about salaries earlier in your presentation, and you said that you like to pay above industry average. So someone is asking, like, for a small business that is in the range of $1 to $1.5 million in annual revenue, how would you handle that when you have, like, they have 15 employees, 1.5 million revenue right now? How would you handle the salaries?
That's a great question. That's a great question. Think about this, Mike. If you are, by the way, the average sales on a yearly basis for a Hispanic business owner is exactly the range that you're talking about, 1.5 million. And it hasn't grown too much. Obviously, they are multi-billion-dollar companies. But on average, when you look at the census information, right, is 1.5 million a year.
Mm.
So the question is, do you have a business that's going to be a family business just to keep everybody happy, and give a nice raise? Or are you going to have a growth mentality that you want to really grow the company. Because I can tell you, let's say you have let me use examples. I'm not going to identify companies because as I mentioned, I have worked with the small companies to big, large companies. And I've seen the good, the bad, and the ugly in all of them. And plus, I used to run my own company, right? I mean, my own, plus I run divisions of companies, right? And so in Fortune 50 companies, so I seen the good, the bad, and the ugly. So my question is, are you better off having 2 employees that you're paying $50,000 each? Yeah. Or having 1 employee that you can pay $80,000 to do the 2 jobs? See? I can give you an example right now.
Yeah.
This happened with a small business company. I had a client. They had a vice president of operations, right? And he had a line production supervisor for each line. And in reality, he didn't need to have a line supervisor for each line. He can just have the $80,000 guy, let's say, checking, all the things. So in this case, it was going to be cheaper for him. Okay, so I identified the person. To hire one $80,000 person, then having 3 $50,000 person or $60,000 person. So the other thing is, you have 15 employees. My question is, how many of them are your relatives?
Yeah.
That you are just keeping them in the payroll, right? Because you need to give us benefits and things. So, and again, I respect this, okay? So you have to decide from a strategic perspective, do you really want to grow the company or not? Because if you, very, very few individuals are going to agree to a really significant cut in pay just to get a job. Most individuals have a certain goal, and if you want really quality, you have to do it. So there is a way. Another way is, can this person bring to you new ideas that can reduce the cost significantly? Like low-hanging fruit. Can you go back and with facts renegotiate the contract with your suppliers, especially nowadays? I had another client. I've been in business for 15 years, the same contract, right? And the supplier always scale it up every year. But my customer had been growing in volume, so why don't you go and negotiate? I'm sorry, I think.
Piggybacking on that comment that you just made, because I have one question here about the market-oriented ecosystem that you talked about earlier. Give me 2 or 3 tips for small businesses that they can use to negotiate with their suppliers, with their financial institution that is providing them the line of credit or whatever. Because right now, under this pandemic, these small businesses need that type of communication with all those folks that are helping them to be in business. So give me 2 or 3 recommendations that you can suggest to them in regards to, nurturing those relationships with your vendors and stuff.
Yeah, the first thing that I would recommend, if you are not already involved, not only as a member of Chamber of Commerce, or a member of the U.S. Business Association, or whatever. If you're just a member, who really knows about you? Nobody. Maybe just go and exchange cards.
Yeah.
But if you offer to service, how many volunteers would you like to have? They have expertise. Yeah. And at the same time, if I need something, I can come to you, or I say, hey, Ty, did you know a banker that may be able to help? Just like Wells Fargo, is sponsoring this. Thank you, Wells Fargo. So the question is, if you don't have it yet, then, and right now the situation is there, right? So go and really beg and be honest. But it's going to cost you more from a collateral perspective. On the other hand, my advice to you is better to deposit in the checking account, emotional value, before you need something from the checking account. And when I'm talking about checking account, I'm not talking about a banking account. I'm talking about if I'm serving with you, if I'm serving the American Chamber of Commerce, or the bilateral association, or the local Hispanic Chamber of Commerce, African American, and I have leadership roles, then that thing comes automatically. But the important thing is to be honest. Not try to hide, oh no, I'm doing fine, I have no problems. But in reality, that that's not the case. Because then the people are not going to offer you anything. But if a banker feels that you are solid, huh, and it's only just to help you to survive 2 or 3 months, they will most likely do it. So deposit in the account before you do that and take leadership roles and be well known in the community, especially if you're Hispanic or African American, go through the churches. If you are Asians, they have a lot of festivals and things. Get involved in them. If you are the general market, sponsor events.
Mm-hmm. You know that one of the main issues that small businesses have is access to capital. And you talk about building relationships with bankers earlier. Can you give us like 2 or 3 tips on how you can nurture that relationship and build it to a point where, when a pandemic hits, you're going to have access to credit?
Right now, it's more difficult because you don't have access to too many events where you can actually shake hands and they get to know you, face to face.
Mm-hmm.
Like I have known you for how many years now?
Yeah.
So
14.
Whether we're on Zoom or anything, right? You know who I am, I know who you are, right? And we help each other. So it's the same thing here. One nice way that you can create a relationship with bankers right now, they are all dying for solid, well-established companies. They can actually grow, as after that.
What is a solid, well-established company from your perspective? Is it based on revenue or years that have been in business or leadership?
It can be a combination, depends on the industry. If you have been 15 years and you have always produced profits and you keep on growing and growing and growing and you are not in the market, that's a pretty solid company. On the other hand, if you're new, but you're using exponential technology and you only have 2 or 3 years, but you're already making a lot of money, the bankers want to be there. If not the bankers, the other thing is people, they're investors. Because we normally see as small business owners, we have great ideas, but we don't want to share the wealth. Yeah. And it's better, I always say, to have 5%. What is better, to have 5% of a big thing, or to have 50% of a little thing? Depends how little and how big. So until you know how big and how little, you don't know. Because in many cases, if you just try to do it yourself, you're going to end up with 0% of your business. But it's tough. But right now, it's very difficult, to be honest with you, to do that relationship. Right? Unless you start attending webinars, and all the banks are doing webinars right now, and you actually start asking strategic questions during the seminars. They start recognizing you. But on the other hand, also go through people like you. You have so many connections throughout the country that if the person you feel is honest, you will go out of your way to help them.
We have one question right here in regards to board of directors. they are asking like if a company is too small for a board of directors, how can they attract someone like you, for instance, they said, to provide some of her valuable time to give advice to the company without a compensation. Could you talk about some people can be volunteers at a board level or advisory board? How can you attract someone like you as a volunteer in a small company?
First is think about not only what the person can do for you, what can you do for that person? And whether your idea is really an idea that has real market value or not.
So that's
Because,
so for example, in your case, that's something that you would consider, like if this company is offering value, it has growth potential, those will be some of the factors for you to consider volunteering as a board of director?
yeah, I've done it many times.
Okay.
Because it's not just money. Yeah, it feels good when you see a small company that you help, they suddenly boom, scale up. So, and normally, the compensation is not the main part. Is the growth of the company that is important for us. Obviously, we cannot do it all the time, but we can do some. And we all do it at all levels. Mm-hmm. But the key idea is this. If we have a good idea, let me just share with you one. I had a person, they asked me exactly this. I evaluated. This person has spent like 20 years developing the formulation for a product that they sell. When I went there, I said, look, a big company is going to come and produce the same thing. Oh no, they cannot do it. It took me 30 years, 20 years or whatever. Guess what? Within 3 months, that company had a product. But before that, I had talked to the person. They actually put the new product. And I said, hey, why don't you talk to them, right? And see if you can buy them or work with them, help them grow. Why? Because a big company or bigger company can use economy of scales that you cannot do it. And sometimes it's 10, 15% differential or more in the cost of supplies or raw materials. That is not including the technology. Because if you have somebody that has the technology already, right, you can implement it. And you just become a big guy, a big company in the eyes of the public.
Yeah. So we have, I have a lot of more questions, but we're kind of like running out of time. But let's see if we can cover like 3 or 4 more. We have one question in regards to mergers and acquisitions. How can you value your company when someone else wants to acquire you?
Oh, well, that's a great question. And I can give you examples there. Okay. For instance, the best value that you can get as a small business is not just to try to sell it, but try to identify companies that could leverage what you have and expand it. For instance, Taco Bell, Pepsi, bought Taco Bell when they had 13, 14 Taco Bells. Yeah. Now how many stores the Taco Bell has? A few thousand, right? I remember I was an executive there, market manager. And when we celebrated with Mr. Bell, and there was a Mr. Bell, by the way. We went to the original store that he had, and Andy was saying, the new CEO of John, I said, hey, look, what we did with your company. He said, yeah, but who benefits the most, Because he was getting shares and he was getting money, He had a house here. So you can get more value when you are not in the desperate mode, but that you can really spend the time or hire somebody to spend the time to look for you, synergetic, companies, because for them, it's not just the value of your EBITDA or your sales or gross sales or net sales, whatever you have it, but it's the value of the brand. And that's what is important.
Yeah, because they're asking like if you have assets, I mean, I'm sorry, like intangible assets, like how can you value a company like, for example, like software? Like how can you value a company that has technology if someone else wants to acquire them when they don't have? It says like they haven't had enough revenue, but they want to see like how they can be valued based on their intangible assets.
Well, there is the same thing. Is this technology something that can really help me leverage my brands? Because let's say, okay, just for the sake of it, I have a product right now, and somebody else come out with a software that can make this product visible across all different channels, including digital, social media, different platforms.
Mm-hmm.
And I don't have one. I know if I try to do it myself, it's going to cost millions of dollars, right? It's going to be impossible. On the other hand, you can use Salesforce, right? And Oracle, now that they have the small versions that they can sell to small companies for, I don't know, a few bucks a month per seat. But on the other hand, if that company can see the technology growing, okay, and helping them, that's key. And let me, if I may, let me add something to that. That is one of the most significant changes happening right now. In the past, they used to have, there used to be knowledge, expertise, but now is wisdom, what is value. So that's why in the past used to be AT&T Labs, used to be HP, etc., Xerox. But now is big companies are buying the little companies that have the new ideas. I have a student, his dad started a new system for IP telephony in a garage. Cisco bought him out. You know how much money that is?
Yeah.
So you just need to look at where I can create real value.
Okay. We'll take probably two more. This one is in regards to your services. Someone is asking like, do you take businesses that are only over 1 million in revenue, or have you consulted smaller businesses?
Well, I have consulted with smaller businesses.
Okay.
I work out with them. My fees, right?
Yeah. Okay. So we'll share that info if there. Oh, and you share at the end, but we will share your email and phone number. Let me see. Competitor newcomers. Okay, so the last one is about like once you start building momentum on your organization. You were talking about exponential growth. You said exponential organization.
Yeah.
How can you tell? I mean, I'm trying to translate this because the question was in Spanish. So if
say it to me in Spanish and then
no, for the audience, it says like if you're already like if your company is already growing, I guess the question is like what's the margin that you feel comfortable to start like reinvesting? I guess they don't want to lose the cash flow part of the equation, so they want to keep reinvesting into the company, but without having that comfort money in the bank. So is there like a formula that you have, or any advice in that regard?
There is where we need to really use what I call the love triangle of financial business. Because the more you grow, the more capital you go. When you are a small company, many times you can finance the growth using your credit cards.
Mm-hmm.
That is until around $5 million. Then the next step is between $5 and $10 million. Then things are getting a little bit more difficult, and you need more line of credits, etc. But a small line of credit, and where you have to collateralize your own profit, your
Wait,
own
but
assets.
did you say like financing your business with a credit card up to $5 million?
Yeah. Oh, but depends on your credit.
Yeah, of course. I mean, but if you have that line of credit through your credit card, you have seen that.
No. I'm not talking about having $5 million or X, but you have, let's say, you have 4 or 5 credit cards, and you have $100,000.
Okay, I
So
see.
you have $20,000 in each one. It's not hard to do that.
No, I know. But you
It's
have
not
to be
hard.
very responsible. And this is you're touching a really important point right here, because a lot of small businesses, and especially in the Latino community, they finance their businesses with credit cards.
Yeah, it's no problem. But you have to include the charges, the interest charges they're going to do.
As an
And
operating
your cost,
expense.
yes, and it cost. Right? Yeah, because I know people that says, "Oh, I make a lot of money. I buy it for $2, right, and I sell it for $3,
Yeah,
but their cost is $1.50, so they're actually losing money every time."
exactly.
No, so that is important, No, then you need line of credit, and then after 30 million, the nightmare is now how can you do it? Because you're going to need investors. But many groups, especially Hispanics, they don't want to share part of the company or anything.
Mm-hmm, mm-hmm.
And
Okay.
so then you have to stay at that level.
So from your perspective, and this is my question, I'm making this question to you because it can be a little controversial. So I want people to know that I'm making it. It's not someone else in the chat, but from your perspective, based on the many years that you have been consulting businesses, do you think that the access to capital in the Latino community is more because of a racial, an ethnicity problem, or because of the lack of financial statements and having the documents in order to give that confidence to those that are lending the money that you're going to pay it back? What's your take on that?
In general, small businesses need to have, a strategic plan. It's not going to be as elaborate, right, like a big company or a mid-sized company, but they need to have a way to tell the people, this is what we're going to do to grow. They need to have a strategic, a tactical plan, the marketing plan. This is how we're going to achieve, the what's, the strategic ideas, the plan. And this is the type of result that we expect to have.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, people, again, when you are small, people are not buying into your business. They're buying into either your idea or they're buying into how much they feel comfortable with you.
Mm-hmm.
Now, that's a key part. I can tell you from my own experience. I went from working for big companies, right, where I didn't have to worry about line of credits. I started divisions, right, and they give me $300 million, $400 million just to start it. I could put a payroll of $3, $4, $5 million in a month, and no problem.
Mm.
But on the other hand, I had to deliver, right?
Yeah, exactly, of course.
But it's a different problem than having to be just begging for money just to hire one more employee. So, buy a new machine. But right now, the best way is use technology to do that. But on the other hand, what is really important is, do you have the relationships that people can do it? Because let me share something with you. It's very interesting. They've done many studies, right, around the world, and they get the same results because the brain thinks the same way, just in different languages and based on different cultural values. But in any country of the world, why do you think that Facebook is so successful?
Oh, exactly.
Right? Versus email marketing or anything.
Mm-hmm.
Because if I say, hey, Teddy, I recommend to you that you buy this book, right?
Yeah.
You may not buy it, but at least you're going to take a look.
Of course, yeah.
Right?
Mhm.
Oh, why don't you buy this makeup? You know,
Mhm.
why don't you buy this suit or whatever?
Yeah.
So the more you can get closer to be one-to-one, yeah, the better off you are.
Yeah.
There's a new book that just came out from Jim Gilmore. This is called the Experiential Organization. You know, I know Jim for a long time. He's the one that developed one-to-one customization, mass customization, and all those. And he just came out with this thing. So when if somebody just conduct a transaction with you and sell you and buy you and you just give money, you don't have emotional attachment.
Mm-hmm.
But on the other hand, you know, why do you think the iPhone had the retail stores? It cost them more money, you know, they were really they produce because it's a lot of headaches with so many employees. But you feel comfortable, right? If you have a problem, you can just go and throw the phone in the face of the client.
Yeah.
Or talk to them and say, can you solve my problem?
Uh-huh.
Right? So the more you can get one-to-one, right, the better off you are. And that doesn't change around the world.
And I ask you this question because I've been involved with the Hispanic Chamber of E-commerce for 12 years now, and it's been 12 years that every year there are reports saying that one of the biggest issues that small businesses have is the lack of access to capital, and that banks do not want to provide loans to Latinos, or they don't do it as much with the general market. But from my perspective, Francisco, and from what I have seen over the last 12 years, is the lack of preparedness from small businesses in our community to go out and ask for money. It's not that there is no money out there. It's just like the way that we put together our business plan or proposal or our pitch to different financial institutions that have the money is not put it the right way. And that's when we need to talk to people like you so you can help us out on how we can, put our documents together in a way that is going to be appealing, for a financial institution to lend us some money.
Yeah, exactly. So I shared with you the story, right? When we got the two $500,000 orders in a week, right? Wow, what are we going to do now, right? So what I did in that case, not only I have the statements and the growth plans and everything, plus the other thing that's very important is, are you being recognized in the industry? See? Have you done something that really impact the industry from a strategic or a tactical perspective?
Mm-hmm.
And we have.
Mm-hmm.
That's why we had the problem, because we were a shop of 7 people, right? But we were in the main industry magazines, at least 1 or 2 every week. Mm-hmm. And people thought that we were a big shop. We don't. They used to hire us to go to San Antonio, to go to New York, and work with the big companies.
But see, that same approach applies to a small business, because if they are very active in the community, just like you said earlier, if they get involved with schools and events and stuff, a banker is going to see you all over the place, and they will feel comfortable because you are giving them that sense of trust, right?
Yeah, but again, not only just show up to the event, you have to be a leader in the event.
Like a sponsor, involved in the planning.
Yeah, the planning committee. The other thing is, when I went to the meeting with one banker, they accept to speak with me. Not only I had all the plans and the balance sheets and income statement projections, but I have a PowerPoint presentation with me.
Ready.
So here, let's go through this, right? And I have all the documents that you're going to need. Okay. In 2 days.
That's what I'm talking about. Jesus. Okay, the last one, and this is mine. The last one, because it's 6:30. Technology. You talk about technology and the importance of having a website and having an online presence. I talk about it all the time, but I would love my audience to hear from someone like you, because I'm going to use that message that you give us right now, for some promotional material. So how important is technology for a business regardless of the size?
Right now, if you don't apply technology to your company, you're going to be dead in no time. I don't know how else to put it. Technology is life. Because in a 24, 7 days a week, 24 hours a day environment, how are you going to provide that? Especially if you're small. It's very expensive to have people on the phone or to have things. So from using bots, robot answering systems, but with artificial intelligence or that. And sometimes it sounds like very expensive.
Yeah.
Right now, it's not that expensive anymore. The other thing is, join people or have people show you, what they are talking about, they can offer you, but also talk to the people that they say that they have used the technology.
Mhm.
They are your same size or the size that you want to grow to.
Mhm.
And because right now, if I cannot access the status of my order online, should I wait until tomorrow when you open the office at 8 o'clock or 9 o'clock in the morning?
Yeah,
I can't.
exactly.
Another thing, for instance, Windows. If you want to buy Windows, there's some websites that allow you to upload your pictures from your different rooms where you want to have Windows. And based on that, they tell you what are the recommended things and what sizes, what will look better with your paint, or you plan to change the paint. It's done there.
Hmm. Yeah.
And CRM, customer relationship management, is very important. You need to have your contacts.
Definitely. I mean, and we have seen it now with this pandemic, like restaurant industry. Those that had access to their database are the ones who are being able to stay open, selling because they had that CRM at the restaurant and they could sell promotions and stuff. But those that they didn't have it, now they're struggling big time. And that was just one industry as an example, but that applies to any business in any industry.
Yeah.
So, Dr. Valle, thank you so much for your time. This has been amazing. I mean, people are going to have to watch this presentation over and over again to go through your slides. I can't wait for your next presentation next month. I know it's going to be a killer too. So thank you very much. Anything else that you want to add before we leave?
Oh, yes. Again, thank you for the opportunity. It has been an honor and a privilege for me to work with you, and hopefully I can provide some support to all your members or the people in the audience, because I was very fortunate in my life. There has always been good people willing to help me, and now is my time to give something back here.
And you are giving a wealth of knowledge, Dr. Valle. Thank you very much. And again, I appreciate your friendship and everything that you do for our community and everything that you have done for the business community in general. So thank you so much for joining us this evening, and we'll see you next month.
Thank you. Appreciate
Thank you,
it.
everyone.
Good night.
Bye.